My name is Natasha and I am 40.
Hi, I'm Katie. I am 42.
I'm Kerry. I'm 46 years old.
I'm Lizzie. I'm 38.
Jane Regan-Payne, 55 years old.
Welcome back to Interwovxn's fourth season, featuring conversations centered on life's essentials and on celebrating and supporting women in middle life. We are thrilled this season to exchange support with Melnick and Melnick SC. Melnick and Melnick SC is a law firm of women dedicated to supporting small business owners. They manage legal issues with collaborative solutions, cost-effective strategies, and up-to-date communications. Melnick and Melnick SC values women and entrepreneurs so much that in 2017, they started She Stands Tall, a community of women who learn from and inspire each other. Visit melnickmelnick.com and shestandstallmke.com for more information and to learn about future events. Today we're listening to Kerry and Phoebe, two friends living in Alaska, as they talk about finding each other and building community in one of the U.S.'s most distant states, how identity is connected to location, how we identify ourselves independently from our relationships and careers, societal expectations, mourning our former selves, perimenopause, and women's health advocacy. A huge thank you to this season's featured musician, Gina Barrington. Remember to hit subscribe so you can be the first to know about new episodes, and visit our website to join the Interwoven community, receive newsletters and event information, access all of our resources, and to connect with us on social. Find us at interwoven.com. That's interwovxn.com.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I am 33 and I'm a farmer and also work in lands conservation. I'm an Enneagram 2 and I'm an introvert whose idea of a good time is weeding in the garden alone, listening to a podcast or music.
Hi, my name is Kerry. I am 39 years old. I am a proud biological and adopted auntie to both humans and other people's pets, and I'm a cat mom for life. I find inspiration constantly in the many, many incredible women in my life. My love language is definitely laughter, and I'm at my happiest when I'm surrounded by my people. I also revel in my downtime, sleep, lots of sleep, and being alone in nature. Hi, Phoebe.
Hi,
How are you
Carrie.
today?
Oh, I'm good. It's Friday. That's exciting. It's sunny. It's going to be 63 in Alaska today, which for us is like a real treat.
Well, Phoebe, thanks for joining me in a conversation today. I'm really excited to get into the weeds. I mean, obviously, we are very good friends and talk all the time.
Yeah.
But I think I'm really looking forward to having this space together to really focus on some of the topics that I've been listening to on this podcast being shared. And I am so excited and honored to be here. I can't believe that I'm doing this.
These are such important conversations to have as women, but also as women who are friends. Like, I don't know if women have enough of these conversations just in our day-to-day life. So it's cool to be provided a space to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So just a little bit of a background about myself and how I met Phoebe. I was born and raised and lived most of my adult life in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I had just finished up my second degree. I like to say not because I'm smart, but because I was in school for, 8 years after graduating with my first degree in design right during the 2008 crash. So this was about 2016. I had gone back to school, got my degree in conservation and environmental science from the University of Milwaukee. During my time there, I had three different choices essentially of what path I could go down in that degree. One was animal science, which is very competitive to get into, and so I was not about that, even though I love animals. The other was water science, which you needed a lot of math, and that is not my thing. And the third one was really broken down into essentially soil science. So that was the path that I chose. Started getting really into plants in general, but then during that time, as a very poor college student, I started growing my own food for the first time. I did not grow up with a garden. I did not grow up around farms. I mean, Milwaukee has a lot of really amazing urban agriculture happening, and we're not very far away from the nearest farm, but that was not a part of my life growing up personally. So it was really new and exciting to me, and I wasn't half bad at it. And so I kind of started paving my own path while I was in school. There wasn't really anything at UWM at the time anyways that was specifically focusing on any type of agriculture. You really had to go to Madison for that. So I'm like, well, soil is agriculture. So I started interning at farms just around the area near Milwaukee and got really into farms that were focused also on education. So kind of gravitated towards the nonprofit side of things, food security and things of that nature that were related to growing food, and really started to recognize, really still within my schooling, how many conversations were being had around big ag, quote, and, what that was doing to the soil, our ecosystems, conservation, which is a whole nother, that's a word that you could unpack of what that means. And so that's what I wanted to do. I'm like, great, I want to farm. I want to work at a farm that is not only farming, but is in the community and has some sort of educational arm to it. Still didn't really know exactly what that looked like. So I was job searching because I was tired of being a forever student. I'd been working in the service industry at that point for 15 years. And I was tired of being a forever intern, quite frankly. Had some great experiences, but it was time. And I had signed up for, I don't even know the name of it anymore, a listserv that a friend had tuned me into, and I saw this listing for an internship, of course, on this farm in Alaska. And that is the only reason I clicked on it. I'm like, Alaska? I mean, at this point, I still had no intention of applying for this internship. I think I gravitated towards it because I had, like many people, forget Alaska even exists unless they have a personal tie to it. I had just never thought of what agriculture or growing food means in Alaska. And so that really piqued my interest. And so I looked into it. And then, of course, one thing led to another. I'm like, what's one more summer? It's my last summer of, quote, freedom before I have to find a real job. And so I left my partner, Kyle, behind for 6 months and my then 2 cats at the time, and came up to Palmer, Alaska to work on a farm called Spring Creek Farm that is affiliated with one of the local universities up here called Alaska Pacific University. It's one of their satellite campuses, and worked there for the summer. It was amazing. Still had no intention of moving to Alaska. This was supposed to be like a summer adventure. I had not met Phoebe yet at that time. Although I feel like, Phoebe, you came up that summer, didn't you?
We met. Yeah. We didn't know what our future held, but we met that summer. So I visited. Yeah, we went on a little trip to Talkeetna together.
That's right. I always forget. You've reminded me of this like a whole time. That's right. I totally forgot about that. So that farm didn't really technically have educational programming per se, but it was a farm that had been, it's a very long, convoluted history. There were people that had been working on that farm and had put, their hearts and soul into it for years, and were trying to get something up and running that was going in the direction a little bit more of what attracted me. As much as I loved farming, I really liked the idea of building some sort of educational programming surrounding that and working within the community again on issues surrounding things like food security. And the farm manager that was there at the time, that was really my mentor, she's an amazing woman. Her and her husband were the farm managers there. She really took me under her wing and had a planned exit, which I did know that. And so I think she really saw an opportunity in me, which I was really grateful for. And she knew that I wasn't like the, quote, traditional intern. I was like the mom intern. I think I was already, I can't remember if I was 30 already. I must have been just about 30. I think. No, I was probably older. I'm lying to myself. I think I was like 31 or 32. And so it was me and a bunch of 18-year-olds, which was fine. And so we really started having this conversation about if I was willing to move my life up there, I, could in theory kind of take over where she left off. And so that was really the catalyst and the decision that got me to Alaska. So I was like, that is an opportunity at the time that I could not say no to. It was still a really hard decision to move that far away from my family and friends in Milwaukee. But my partner, Kyle, and I had been talking about moving to another state for a really long time. So we're like, well, I guess it's Alaska. Alaska made the decision for us, and then officially moved up. We both did in 2017, in the winter of 2017, where I then started my next year at the farm. And I think that's where you come in, Phoebe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll give a bit of background about how I got to that farm in Alaska in 2017. I kind of fell into farming, not really like intending to pursue that as any kind of career or whatever you want to call it. But after college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Was very lucky and privileged to be in a position where I didn't have to think about getting like a quote unquote real job immediately because of scholarship opportunities that I had received. So I had decided that I wanted to do something in the outdoors, and this internship on a sheep dairy down in Georgia came up, and I was like, sure, that seems cool, and fell in love with it. Kind of started farming around the country, doing essentially like internships for other farmers and working as free labor really at the end of the day. And I farmed in Georgia and in Washington, and then eventually in Alaska, which is how I met the farm managers at Spring Creek that Kerry mentioned. And I kind of decided after doing that for a number of years, I needed to figure out my life and get a real job. So I tried to move to Seattle and have a real job. I don't know. I was working as a nanny, so I don't know what path I was trying to find for myself, but kind of immediately just that was not the right move for me, and had always had this dream of being back in Alaska. Alaska's a weird place. I think people that live here say it often that like it really gets under your skin. It's hard. It's really far away. Was born and raised in South Georgia. I literally live on the opposite side of the country from my parents, who like to remind me of that sometimes. When you go there and you live there, it just does something to you. And when you leave, nothing's quite like it. I don't know how to describe it. And so I had this like longing to be back in Alaska, and came back up when there was an opportunity to be the assistant farm manager at Spring Creek. That's the summer that Kerry and I met, and we were kind of like working all together and living there. And like, it's a really unique experience to do that with someone, to live with you, like to live together and to work together in a, somewhat remote place. I mean, Palmer is part of the most populous area in Alaska. So we're not like off in like interior in the middle of off the grid, but it's still, it's very different than the other places I had lived. So I don't know. I've lived and worked on a lot of farms over my years and done that with other employees. It can be really, really bad to say it simply. When Kerry and I met, I don't know, it was just something that like clicked, and it was like this natural friendship, but also natural ease at working with each other. In my experience, at least, that's been unique, especially when you're working in a stressful environment. I like to joke that I think there was definitely some trauma bonding going on at that job together, which informed our relationship even past all of that. But yeah, that's how we met. And then we're all both still in Alaska, not working at that farm, but still here.
Yeah, I'm already going to start crying. I feel like we've said this story out loud to each other and to other people in the same room so many times.
Yeah.
But I think there's just something about just the two of us kind of retelling it to each other that it's just really special to remember that. And, obviously, like, I still love you very much as a friend. I'm glad that I'm at a point now, you talked about trauma bonding. I think that is very true. I still have this memory. I remember when I found out that we were hiring you, I was super excited and just excited to have another person to bring into the fold. Because as, Phoebe said, we were all living there together as well, which was super rad because we all got along. A really special time in my life that I, through all the weeds, so to speak, metaphorically and physical weeds. But yeah, I remember, I think it was maybe your first, I don't know if it was your first day there or if it was just maybe the first day of work. I just remember being up in the office and you were sitting under a tree. For some reason, that image sticks with me all the time. We have both moved on to different things. I ended up rolling down the hill. There was a farm right next door to Spring Creek. For XYZ reason, the opportunity that I moved up here for did not pan out, which really is just life, right? It was pretty difficult, especially having just moved to a new place. I was really, really homesick, which was actually kind of a shock. I was really excited to move. And it wasn't until I got here that it really sunk in for me what I had done in a lot of ways. And I think especially that first year, really 2 years, we were so poor. It's very expensive to move to Alaska. It's expensive to relocate anywhere. We really didn't have any safety net, and so we were trapped here, like, quite frankly. And so even if I had wanted to move home at that point, we couldn't. But I'm glad that it worked out. I'm glad that I stayed.
I do want to say one more comment about our origin story. When I moved back up to Alaska that first summer I met Kerry, I had just gotten out of like a very long-term relationship that had there was some issues. That's a relationship that I probably should have gotten out many years before, but hindsight's 2020. It was just the first time really that I had been like out on my own as an adult, and making friends at that point in your life when you're kind of like, starting over and being an individual again is very special. I don't know how else to describe it.
I'm glad that you brought that up. And, as you're an adult, it is really hard. And I think I'm finding that a little bit more now, mostly because of where my work has taken me. Man, that got me some really amazing friends that are still friends and now family to this day. And I feel like farming is very similar to that, because you're working side by side, exposes you to different people and different opportunities. That made me think of identity. And I think this is something that I've maybe realized fairly recently, but I have realized how much my identity personally was completely attached to and reliant upon and formed by my place, like physical place.
Yeah.
I never would have understood that had I not moved away. And it's not just Alaska. I'm sure that would have happened in some capacity if I would have gone anywhere else. Man, has it really thrown me for many reasons. I think I always trying to like figure out who I am, but I for a very long time, I think I'm just now kind of getting out of that, where I'm letting go of who Milwaukee Kerry was. I feel like I'm mourning that person of who I was. And I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think that part of it is I'm not in that place anymore. I think a lot of it also has to do with aging and being in a different stage in my life. And because I still don't feel like I have an Alaskan identity, and I don't even know what that means.
It's really a great way of putting it. I don't know what identity means for me. I feel like it's really transformed a lot. When you're in your like early 20s, you're like so sure of who you are, even though you're wrong, like your brain isn't fully formed. I thought I knew what was going on, and I didn't. I'm trying to learn what my new identity, or what my identity is currently. I feel like I do have this sense of like mourning this old identity. I know that that's like a normal thing and natural, but I also like it's hard for me to mourn it, because I feel like a lot of my identity when I was younger was tied to like romantic relationships. I was in a very long-term one. I've always been like a serial relationship person. And so a lot of my identity and value, I think, was associated with that. I also think it was like identity was a part of being a farmer. I mean, honestly, that was what I did, and I felt like it made me cool. I don't know, like that's a simple way of putting it. I also really enjoyed it. It wasn't just that wasn't the only reason I was doing it. And I've kind of like fallen into this new career. I'm still farming. I still have a farm, but I also have to have healthcare and like be able to afford my mortgage payments. While that job is good in a lot of ways, it's not a job that I really like anticipated having. And so I'm trying to like reframe what my identity is. I'm in a very good relationship now, getting married this year. I feel like it's definitely the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. But I don't feel this need to like have my identity attached to it anymore. And I don't feel this need to have my identity attached to a career and what I do. I'm kind of relearning like how do I frame identity now, because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And I do mourn this old person. I feel like a completely different person than I did in my 20s. And that's weird, because like, I mean, that is also part of growing up, but I don't know. I don't think I expected this when I was thinking about aging. I think mourning it is a natural thing.
Hey everybody, we're going to take just a quick break from this interwoven discussion to tell you about Blossom Candle Co., a Milwaukee-based women-owned business. Blossom is a lifestyle brand that takes pride in being eco-friendly and uplifting. All of Blossom's products are intentionally created to uplift the mind, body, and spirit, making you feel more positive and empowered. Visit blossomcandleco.com to learn more or connect on Instagram. Are you interested in hearing your business advertised on the Interwoven podcast? Contact us at hello@interwoven.com.
I don't know that I would recognize myself in my 20s there's a lot that I think I've intentionally tried to forget, like very cringeworthy moments, which I still have a lot of, let's be honest. I'm not ashamed that I feel this way, but I'm also trying to unpack what it means to feel this way, because there's a lot of baggage of the just societal expectations, especially towards women. But it's like, if I could go back in that body, knowing what I do now, what would happen? I think about that all the time. I'm like, would I just fall straight back into like, maybe not being who I was, but like a little bit, just because you have the like physical, like outward look of a 20-year-old? I don't know. Changes, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of identity, and I think that this is just our first phase of that, Phoebe. That's why I'm here. That's why we're here talking today. You know, at 39, I did not expect to start having symptoms of what has not been officially diagnosed, but pretty certain pointing to perimenopause. Trying to do my own research on that and just trying to kind of take the steps, whatever that looks like, into just learning more and trying to set myself up for success versus failure as I continue to go through this. And then it's obviously no secret at this point that many of us, especially in our 20s and 30s, no one's talking about that. I think that's changing, which is incredible. I'm so excited that there are more conversations being had. It makes me really happy for the generation that's coming up below us. I want to be a part of that change. Even if you find a really good doctor that's really into women's health and specifically hormones, which is rare, there is no one size fits all with really health in general. It can still be very tricky, even if you find yourself with the resources and the right people to talk to. And so that makes these conversations even more important, I think.
Yeah. I am younger than you. I will say I really do appreciate your honesty. This last year, I have seen so many changes in my body that it's kind of crazy. Like you just hit that like post 30 life and then it's like, oh, okay, all right, it's all happening. No one prepares you for it. No one talks about it. I do think you're right. A lot more people are talking about this, but I'm really hopeful that more doctors' office start talking about this, because it's great to have these resources like podcasts and blogs and whatever to like listen to. I mean, I was listening to a podcast before this about women's vaginas. Like it was talking about some of the things that you can do when you go through like menopause to alleviate some of like the symptoms that you inevitably are going to experience. But I don't feel like those conversations are happening in doctors' offices as much. Sometimes I get a little self-conscious being that woman that comes into the doctor's office and being like, well, I heard on a podcast that like it's just being an advocate for yourself, which it's hard to do. I mean, I've had some really crazy experiences with doctors around my own health and them basically gaslighting me and telling me that I was not experiencing what I was experiencing and that it must be caused by this thing and not what actually it was caused by, which is what I had thought all along. And so it's wild. It's wild that we're still having to deal with that. And I hope it does change. It's so important to feel validated as a human being.
You know, I was just thinking, back to like the doctor thing. I'm really just getting back into that in general, because this is the first time in my life really that I've truly had decent health insurance. And by decent, as we all know what that means in this country, it's still really not that great. I did find a doctor that I drive into Anchorage for. It's worth it. We're about an hour north of Anchorage, the big city of Alaska. She took an interest in studying on her own women's health and hormones. And my last appointment with her, which was very recently, we've talked about, this and why I'm there and why I chose her. And I'm really grateful to her that she is pursuing this. And she did confirm that. She's like, we are not taught this in school. She's like, I was not formally trained on any of this. She's like, I'm still learning. Like, she's very open with me about it, which I do appreciate. But it also made me think of course, access. I didn't have to demand, thankfully, but I'd heard horror stories. And I'm glad, this goes back to that advocacy. I'm glad that I came armed with that just in case I had to. But I was really nervous still at my last appointment because I knew that I was going to ask/demand a blood panel, because I really wanted to establish a base of where my hormones are at. I knew it was going to be expensive. I don't think I would have changed my mind if I would have known the cost, but I probably should have asked outright what the cost would be. it was $1,500.
Yeah.
And I've not hit my deductible yet. Okay, so my 1 year visit is covered. Grateful for that. That's cool. In most cases, in my life, birth control has been covered. That's cool. But it's like, why does preventative healthcare like this, when you're trying to like take control, why does it have to be that expensive? One of the other things I was thinking about, the symptoms, right? Like, I could kind of like list them off. I mean, for me right now, it's pretty mild, but I had a little bit of spotting between my last few periods, and that's very abnormal for me because I am on birth control and have been for 100 years. And so that prompted really like making another appointment. And, I've been like not getting hot flashes, but getting really hot at night, like night sweats, which is like a pretty common thing that can start to happen. And, there's just some hair thinning, which I have very thin hair, so who knows? But, so those are just like, they're little big things to me that have, sparked me to start kind of looking into this a little bit more. And one thing that I did learn that I feel like is important to share is that, I did end up getting an ultrasound just to kind of, just to double check and make sure nothing was going on. And it was confirmed that I've got some fibroids, which I guess I knew that was a thing, but not really, and like what that meant. And, I asked, and she's like, they're not like typically, like they're not going to like cause cancer. Like it's very common, especially as you get older, you tend to get more fibroids in your uterus and like around your ovaries. And the woman specifically, I'm not here to give health advice. She did share with me, which I just thought was interesting. She's like, obviously every woman's different. She sees, for herself too, she had 3 kids. Her fibroids got much worse after she had her kids. One of many other things of quote aging. I mean, of course you can have that as a young woman as well, but I had no idea. So now that's something that I know and I understand and can look out for if it does become an issue. So Phoebe, what do you find is most essential in your life?
I feel like that answer has definitely changed for me as I've gotten older and my priorities have shifted. Now, the essential things are community, good people around me, people that add value to my life, finding moments of happiness wherever I can. I think when I was younger, I felt like I tied my happiness towards like this big adventure or, moving to this like new place and having this like new experience and like, oh, I'll be happy when like this thing happens or this relationship happens. I think as I've kind of settled into my life, I think just finding happiness in the day to day, I think that's essential. Just trying to have that gratitude and being grateful for where I'm at. For example, I was planting our first plants last night in the garden and fingers are covered in dirt and my cuticles are disgusting, but that's like something I'm very grateful for because it feeds me and makes me happy.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I definitely community, and I know that, but what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
I think community can mean a lot of different things to different people, and that has also changed for me as well as I've gotten older. But that has been really front and center for me, especially in the last year or two. I went through, and I'm still going through, depression, which is a whole nother topic, but I think the last 2 years, it got pretty bad. I think that having that community, which can, for me, really sometimes, especially being up here in Alaska and being so far away from my family and friends, that physical community up here is pretty small and is getting smaller since I've arrived. But mostly for me, that means having Kyle, my partner of over 20 years now, and like maybe 1 or 2 other folks, that just knowing that you're here. And even if I wasn't really reaching out in certain moments of that darkness, just knowing that I had that community and that backbone really got me through. And I think that doesn't necessarily have to do with like depression and helping depression. I think that really knocked what that means for me, like into the front view instead of kind of in the back. Like, yes, community is important, all that. I love being around people. Yeah. It's like, no, really, like that is essential because I don't know what I would have done without that. So
that was very beautiful.
Thank you so much for doing this with me, Phoebe. I love you.
Thank you, Kerry. Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. We invite you to give us a star review and to hit subscribe for a new empowering conversation each week. Visit our website where you'll find our newsletter, event dates, and other amazing resources. Visit interwoven.com, that's interwovxn.com, to sign up today. This show's copyright is summer of 2023. We want to thank Melnick and Melnick for their support this season. Our Interwoven producers are Teresa Kopak, Rebecca Jankowski, and Jen Gilmore. All original music was created and performed by Gina Barrington.